Welcome back to the channel and welcome back to another edition of the Spurs Chat podcast. In this edition, of course, we'll be talking about Tottenham's 1-0 defeat at Selhurst Park, Crystal Palace 1, Tottenham Hotspur 0. Now, we're live on YouTube, we're live on X, we're live on Facebook, so please do get involved. Let us know how you are feeling right now as a Tottenham Hotspur fan. Also, in this episode, at the end, we'll be looking ahead to the Manchester City game in the Carabao Cup, which, of course, takes place at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium on Wednesday. So, as I mentioned, Crystal Palace 1, Tottenham Hotspur 0. Mateta with the only goal of the game in the 31st minute. Eze with the assist. Tottenham Hotspur at the moment stay 8th in the Premier League table, 13 points from 9 games. Now, I've got 3 very special guests, as per usual, to talk about today's game. We've got Craig Dearman back with us. Craig, how are you?
Bloody fed up, actually. Really frustrating again. I think we've got a fetish to do with birds because that's magpies, seagulls, and now eagles. So, yeah, very frustrating. Eze decides to turn up today, and that's why you want to buy him, in my opinion, still. Yeah, very frustrated, Chris, very frustrated.
I didn't expect Craig Dearman to provide the comedy today because we do have a professional comedian on. Cole Jones is back with us, of course, host of When Football Begun Again podcast. Cole, great to have you here. It's been far too long. How are you?
Well, I'm good. I mean, obviously, I think I've got a pretty much unbeaten record coming on your show, Chris. So I was like feeling confident about today. I'm here. We've lost, and there's been 2 Mick Hucknalls in the comments already. So, you know, it's every single time I come on, people think I look like Mick Hucknall. So if anyone's just listening, then that's a reason to pop on the YouTube channel after this, I imagine. But yeah, disappointed and looking forward to cutting to the core of what the hell we've just watched.
Cole, tell us all about When Football Begun Again, because, of course, you are up for 2 awards. You've been shortlisted for 2 awards at the Football Content Awards, which, of course, take place at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium on the 21st of November. Tell us all about the podcast that you run.
Yeah, well, so When Football Began Again started a couple of years ago. It is a kind of Premier League nostalgia podcast. We talk a lot more about just the Premier League, but it's kind of all things top flight. And I get comedians on. I've had Clive Tildesley's been on the show. I was as surprised as anyone that he came back to me. So I've had sort of ex-professional footballers. Still trying to get Ramon Vega on. I do remember coming on here with Ramon. He was getting slowly stewed during one of my appearances on your show, Chris. Can't get Ramon on just yet. But yeah, all if you like particularly 90s and noughties football and reliving. Maybe it's not all Tottenham based, basically. So yeah, some of football nostalgia we cover on that show.
Yeah, absolutely fantastic. Get over there and hit that subscribe button on the YouTube channel as well, and check out all of Cole's work. And good luck with the awards as well, Cole. Also back with us is channel regular and a good friend of mine, Ricky Norwood. Ricky, how are you?
My friend, I'm good, man. I'm good. Apart from the football today, I'm good. It's great to be back on with Craig and Carl. I haven't seen Carl in a long time, so it's good to be back on with him too. And your good self, Chris. Disappointing, frustrating day, but I'm sure we'll jump into it, and I'm sure we'll just dissect it and give all those watchers and listeners at home a little bit of therapy, fingers crossed, and ourselves.
Absolutely. Well, it was Crystal Palace's first league win of this campaign. Only our 2nd defeat against Crystal Palace in 19 games in all competitions. We do have a very good record against Palace, and it was very, very disappointing today, but of course we will get into it. The match facts and stats here: Crystal Palace had 33% of the ball to Tottenham's 67%. Shots, Palace had 14 to Tottenham's 11. Shots on target, Palace had 6 to Tottenham's 3. Shots off target, Palace had 7 to Tottenham's 4. Block shots, Palace 1, Tottenham 4. Touches in the opposition box, Palace 22, Tottenham 26. Goalkeeper saves, Palace 3, Tottenham 5. Aerial duels 1, Crystal Palace 20. Spurs 15. Fouls, Crystal Palace 16. Spurs 12. And corners, Crystal Palace 8. Tottenham Hotspur 8. Craig, let's start today's show with you. Give me your thoughts on today's game, because in the away end, and if anyone can hear any background noise, I apologise, because I'm literally yards away from Selhurst Park, not making my way home just yet. We'll do this podcast first. But It was disappointing. That away end was pretty quiet for a lot of the game today.
Yeah, it's difficult to get behind the team when they're not showing any passion or anything on the pitch. I get that people say, "Oh, the fan, we need the fans. We need the fans to get behind us." But it's kind of play off each other, don't you? Whether it's home or away, the players need the fans, and the fans need to see what the players are doing. And there's just nothing today. The whole performance was just really, really bad. I mean, I put it on a par with that Coventry game, to be honest with you. It's coming to something when Werner comes on and he's better, plays better than any other person on the pitch. I thought he actually put in a couple of good crosses. It's just, I'm kind of at a loss for words because it's just the same old, isn't it? How many times have we been here since we've been doing these podcasts where you think you've turned the corner and then something like that happens and you haven't? That it's just not good enough. I don't really know what else to say. It's just so frustrating. Again, I seem to have used that word quite a lot this season already. We go on a little bit of a run. We can put in a good performance, beat West Ham, get a good result against West Ham, get a decent result in the week, albeit not our best performance, but professional. We got over the line, 3 wins out of 3 in the Europa League, rest some players, give some players some minutes that needed it. We're only really lacking Son. All right, Odegaard was out again today, but it was only Son missing. That was more or less full strength today. And the way Palace had been playing and the lack of points they'd had, I was pretty confident we were going to go to Palace and get a result. We never really generally smash them, do we? It's usually 1 or 2 goals in it. But, I thought we'd put in a performance and it was just lacking. There was no leadership again all over the park. Yeah, terrible. Absolutely terrible. No, I don't see any positives come out today at all. I can't take any positives out of today.
Cole, let's come to you. Let's get your thoughts on today's game because, of course, up until today, 7 wins out of the last 8 in all competitions. Spurs seem to be flying, up until this game. But as Craig said there, it is so frustrating, isn't it? We know that we can go on a winning run. We know that we can win games. We know that we can tear teams apart. But we also know in the back of our minds that we can have that second half performance against Brighton. We can have a performance like today. And I suppose I'd probably put today's Premier League performance down as probably the worst league performance of this season. Would you agree?
Yeah, I think probably in the Premier League it is. Obviously, certainly over a full 90 minutes. The second half against Brighton was appalling. Craig mentioned the Coventry game. That was the match it reminded me of quite a bit, where it was just so frustrating. Yeah. We didn't seem to be able to break them down. We didn't seem to have any new ideas. I know we played on Thursday night, but most of that starting 11 didn't. So there was no real excuse for tiredness in the legs. So many times there were 50-50 balls where Palace just seemed to want it more, where they just seemed to... Yeah. Our lads looked like they were running through treacle at some points for some of the balls, and they weren't driving forward, even in those final sort of 10 minutes where we're trying to pass forward and Romero's turning around, looking and passing it backwards back to Vic. I just, it's as you say, which Tottenham is going to turn up, because we do have those moments like the West Ham game where we absolutely blew them away at the beginning of the second half. But you look at the Brighton performance, you look at that today, you look at how we failed to break down, Leicester in the opening game, at Newcastle. It's becoming a really worrying trend, and you start to pin that onto what happened in the last 6, 8, 10 games of last season as well. You looked at a side and thought you've no idea where a goal's coming from. And let's not forget that we are, I think before this weekend, we were like one of the top goal scoring teams in the league. So it is just so unbelievably frustrating to continue to have performances and spells in games where we blow teams away and go, wow, this is some team we've got here. This is really, really exciting. And then you're back here. I think Palace have, it's possibly a slightly false position that they're in. I think they're a better side than where they are in the table, but that's a thin excuse, really. We should be going to Palace and getting 3 points. I never expected us to steamroller them, but we just didn't. We just didn't look at the races at all. Far too many players just average.
Cole, you've touched on it there, and I said earlier that I felt that Crystal Palace today were absolutely superb from the very start of the game, and from the very off, Their press was absolutely excellent. Every single 50-50 ball, as you mentioned, and they are in a false position because they do have quality players and they have played well in games, but just haven't picked up the points. Very rarely on this podcast do we actually give credit to the opposition, but I feel like we need to do that today.
I mean, the press was, they were all over us, and especially when the ball was at the back, we didn't seem to know how to get out of it. And obviously, again, the goal that decides the game is decided by that as well, as kind of playing square balls back across the face of our own goal and slipping. Like, they looked hungry. They looked like they knew that if they got in amongst us, chances would present themselves, and they did on more than one occasion. And the warnings were there. And I do sometimes feel that this is the thing, and I know that this is the criticism with some of our fans in terms of with Ange Ball and just sort of Ange's kind of the way he approaches matches, is it flexible enough? Will he change tactics and go, right, let's lump it up and let's get it over the halfway line when we're under pressure like that and see what we can do? There didn't seem to be any players on the pitch today who were kind of driving that either. It's really, really hard to put my finger on, other than perhaps leadership. And I wrote down desire, like in big letters as well, going back to that thing of just desire to win the ball. We looked like we were waiting for the ball to be nicked off us, and then we'll deal with it then, you know. So yeah, really, really frustrating.
Ricky, let's come to you and get your thoughts. And I also want to ask you there, and Carl has picked up on that word, leaders, leadership. Now, I heard that in the stadium today, in the away end. When we lost the game, the final whistle went, and I heard a number of fans shouting, no leaders in this team. Now, we have said on many podcasts that we believe, as fans, that there are many leaders on the pitch when we're winning games. But when we're losing games, the fans seem to get frustrated and blame a lot of players, saying that there aren't leaders. So let me ask you that question again. Who are the leaders for you on the pitch? Because when you look at this instant here, right at the end of the game, Vicario came over to the away end. He put his arms up, apologising. It was about 30 to 40 seconds. He stood there with his arms up, constantly apologising to the away end. Now, of course, Christian Romero was the captain today. James Maddison was the captain for Thursday's game against AZ Alkmaar. Heung-min Son is the captain, but of course he was out today. Who are the leaders for you in this team?
Bro, before I even jump into the leaders, because it's something that we have discussed many a time, okay? For me, you started to talk about it. I've got a different opinion on today's game. What Carl was saying there about Leicester, I don't think we failed to break him down. I think we failed to score. I think we had many chances in that game, 6, 7, 8 chances. We could have come out 5-0 easy, but we just didn't score in that game. Today's performance was more about Crystal Palace than it was about Tottenham. I felt that their tactic worked today. I felt that their tactic was a very Mourinho-esque type of tactic, where it was like, they can't allow us to have the ball and let us have possession and get our passing together. The first 15 minutes for me, we were in the battle. And I actually heard those away fans today. In those first 15, 20 minutes, I heard them. Until that Crystal Palace player, was it Lerma, that came off? I think it was around 20 minutes. That's when the game shifted for me. But it was to do with their high press, their aggression, and their tactical fouls. Every time we strung 2 passes together and it looked like we was about to start our flow, they would tactically fail us. You look at that first half, and their press, it wasn't that it was a high press, it was an aggressive press. They doubled up on Kulusevski, they doubled up on Maddison, so our 2 creators, they tried to take out the game. Mikey got moved off the ball a couple of times today, and you saw his youth today. But again, great education for him to kind of go from having his way against RZ and then coming up against a very tough Premier League side and finding it difficult. Palace are very strong. They're very tall. They're very muscular. They're a very aggressive side. Lacroix is a defender that we was linked with. About 2 seasons ago, maybe 3 seasons ago, as a left-sided defensive option. We ended up going with Lenglet. So I've looked at Lacroix. They're building. We know about Gahey as well. And we know about Walton as well, who is a good midfielder. But they were aggressive. And the loss today had nothing to do with a set piece. It had nothing to do with Vicario. It had nothing to do with a high line. It had nothing to do with being naive. It had nothing to do with all of those things. It was an aggressive press, and their tactic was to break up the game and to stop our flow, to stop us getting any momentum. And they achieved that. Their tactic worked today. Postecoglou also brought on subs today to try and change that game. It didn't work, but he also tried to make it happen. The boys, I felt, continued to try to make it happen, and they continued to try and go to that next step and the next action. But every single time we strung the 2 or 3 together, then there would be a technical foul, or then we got a little bit emotional and started fouling ourselves. Once Kulusevski got a yellow card as well, he was in, like, that was their biggest game plan, because Kulusevski has been our most dangerous player playing for us. A lot of the attacking and the defensive play has gone through Kulu, and to get under his skin and to get him booked worked for Palace today. So when it comes down to leadership and comes back to your question, there are leaders all over the field. You know, Vicario's shown leadership. Romero's shown leadership. I thought Basuma today. I thought he had a really good game. It was a hard, tough game for him today. But I thought he had a really good game in his defensive aspect and trying to move that ball forward. He would get a pass off, but then the second pass, let's say Porro, for instance, he wouldn't be able to get his pass off, or he wouldn't be able to get his move off. So then it became a game of almost like trying to play first touch, but it was almost panicked. Let's try and get out. Let's try and get out. Let's try and get out. And they swarmed us. Their back three worked against us. It wasn't a low block. They were playing football. It wasn't everybody behind the ball, but their back three swarmed us, and they knew what to do. They had a plan, and for me, it worked. You know, so I give credit to Palace for having a game plan, and Glasner is a very good manager. You know, we saw how good, when they was in their good period last season, Palace, we saw how good they could be. And, you know, Mateta's had a great kind of summer as well, went to the Olympics, you know, was on good goal scoring form. He was their talisman last season. He's come into the game today, and a bit of a scrappy goal. A lot of people were speaking about Van de Ven. I know we're going to jump in. A lot of people were speaking about Van de Ven, but to me, it was a bad pass from Romero. Romero should have pushed it up the field. He shouldn't have gone back to and given that type of cross pass to Mickey Van de Ven and put him under all sorts of pressure, especially with 2 men on him. So I've got a different opinion of today. I don't think it was all doom and gloom. I don't think we were terrible. I don't think because we lost a game that our season has ended. I don't think we're going to get relegated. I don't think Ange Ball is not working. I don't think any of these things. I think that the problem that we face today is a problem that we face normally when we play Chelsea, which is they do not allow us to play. RZ allow us to play. West Ham allow us to play. Do you know what I mean? They allow us to ball, they give us possession, and they let us go, and we find our way, you know, but Palace didn't do that today.
I completely agree with everything you've said. But if Spurs want to be a team to compete in the Champions League and finish top 4, you have to find a way to win these types of games. Yeah,
no, I agree. I agree with you on that. I just look at it from a different point of view. But not everything is gifted to us in the Premier League. Not everything is. We're not entitled to anything. We have to earn our stripes, and we've got to go out there and do it for ourselves. So it doesn't matter whether we're playing somebody who's bottom of the league, or somebody who's in 10th, or somebody who's in the top 2. You have to earn your stripes. And today we came up against a problem that we haven't faced for a long time, and now there's a different thing. Now there's a different. They've got to find different solutions to this problem. We've found solutions against our set plays. You know, corners and free kicks. I think we've conceded 1. You know, we've found solutions to the high line and stuff like that. You know, Palace got caught out a couple of times offside when they believed that they were through. Eze's goal today that got chalked off, but looked like they were through, but we held our high line. So you got to give them credit where it is. Even though today was a bad performance overall, for me, it was down to Palace and their game plan, and we had no answer to that game plan. We didn't have enough aggression today. Our aggression came out as petulance, and that's when we got booked, and that's when we ended up being vulnerable and sensitive. You know, so to me, it's more on Palace. But I totally agree with you, Chris. We have to be winning these types of games. I'm not excusing it. I'm just trying to explain it.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with you, and that is a perfect summary. Let's hear from Ange Postecoglou. This is what he's had to say on the game.
Yeah, look, it was just one of those games where just a lot of stoppages, a lot of battles, and they ended up winning the majority of them and coming out on top.
Would it be fair to say you didn't reach the level that you've been used to in recent sort of weeks, considering the run of form you've been on?
I just don't think it was that sort of game. Like I said, there's a lot of disruptions, a lot of stoppages, a lot of downtime, and it's hard to sort of get any fluency. But we had to battle today, and just try and stay in the game. But fair to say, they did it better than us.
There were a few times when some of your players looked a bit frustrated because they didn't have a passing option on. Did you sense that as well, that sometimes there was a lack of options for them?
Not really. I thought there was plenty of options, but like I said, we ended up turning into a game that they kind of, they were thriving on at the time, particularly away from home. When the crowd's going to get behind them, and we should have dealt with it a lot better.
The way the goal came about as well, there were a couple of close shaves before that. Fair to say that maybe your game playing out from the back wasn't the high standards that you're used to?
No, it was just a poor goal to concede. It's got nothing to do with playing out from the back. If you don't do it the right way, then whether you do it at the back, in the middle, or anywhere else on the park, you're going to get punished, and that's what happened.
At the end, they went over to the away fans. There seemed a bit of disgruntlement from the supporters about the performance today. Can you understand that?
I'd be very surprised if they were happy, mate, yeah.
Because you're not happy, obviously.
Why would I be happy? Is there a question about today or our supporters? So our supporters are unhappy, I'm unhappy, the players are unhappy. I think that's a fair assessment.
Only because I asked you if your level dropped below what you expected, and you didn't necessarily think that was the problem, so...
No, but I identified another problem, which was that we didn't battle today like they did. So I think if you're suggesting that our fans somehow weren't happy with today, then I think that's a fair assessment. I'm not happy, the players aren't happy.
I don't think anyone's happy, actually. Craig, Ange Postecoglou talked about playing out from the back there. What did frustrate the away end today was the amount of times we tried to play out from the back, in particular Vicario, and putting us into trouble a number of times. It happened in the second half as well, which you would have thought that Ange would have addressed at half-time, no?
Yeah. I mean, it scares the life out of me watching us play out the back sometimes. It really does. I know a lot of top teams do it. In fact, most of the top teams try to play out from the back. Very rare do you see a long ball. I would like to see us mix it up a bit every now and then, because sometimes that short pass is not on. Palace were on us, pressing us. They'd obviously done their research on us. They knew that's what we was going to do, and we flapped and we panicked a couple of times. But it was just the passing in general for me. It wasn't just the playing out from the back. It was passing throughout that, especially the first half. It was just dreadful. It was like watching Sunday League. The players were just not finding feet. There was no movement. Mikey Moore was he had a tough game today. I thought he tried, but it wasn't an ideal game for him. Whereas I thought he probably deserved a chance today. I'm not having a go at Mikey Moore at all, but that was a tough game for him today. But you got to say that the players giving him the ball didn't help him out much either. We're over a year into this project now. I would hope that these players they'd be more adept at what they're doing and playing out from the back. They're professional footballers. That's what they practice. That's what they do every day. And it's just not good enough. You could say Mickey van der Ven, one mistake, one bad clearance, but the defending, we've got to stop those crosses coming in. We seem to have sorted out the set piece issues, like Ricky said, but just in general, the goals we concede, that we do concede, are so sloppy. It's of our own making a lot of the time, and that's what's frustrating. Is what they say in tennis, unforced errors, and that's what we're all about, is unforced errors. Sometimes, when we've got the ball and we either give it away, it's a bad pass or whatever. It's just so, but it's just really frustrating. Really is.
Craig, Carl and Ricky have both mentioned the word aggression. Are you surprised that we didn't see more of an aggressive Spurs team today, particularly going to Selhurst Park? Because we know whoever their manager is, whoever their players are, whoever the starting 11 is, this is always a very aggressive game.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, and that's another thing that frustrates me. We're not aggressive enough. My views on it are that, as well as Palace played today, we're Spurs. We should be beating Palace, regardless of what they're doing. You know, don't worry about them. On our day, we should have ripped them apart today, on paper at least. I know the game's not played on paper, but it's just that it's so funny, that aggression when you say like players like Romero on the pitch. You know, you just want to leave something on somebody occasionally. Just that tackle that gets the crowd going, that gets your teammates going. Didn't see any of that today. Didn't see any of it at all. And Gray and Bergvall on the bench, especially Archie Gray. I know he played in the week, but you know, they paid 40 million for this kid. Why not give him a chance in the number 6 role? You know, because I didn't think Bissouma was dreadful, but it just wasn't right today, that midfield. And again, I think that's where a lot of our problems come from sometimes, is through that midfield. It's not necessarily the defenders all the time. It's that midfield not protected. And it just was so disjointed today. I thought Palace were okay. I didn't think they were brilliant. It weren't like we were playing Real Madrid. I just think they'd done a number on us. And like you say, you got to go into battle against Palace, and we would not battle in today. There was nothing, absolutely nothing. So frustrating. Kulusevski giving away stupid fouls in stupid positions again, as well as he's played all season. He frustrates me when he does that. I mean, he was lucky not to get sent off. He did do a couple of stupid fouls after that. So, you know, at least he didn't walk. But yeah, work to be done. It always seems like 2 steps forward, 3 steps back with this club sometimes.
Cole, let's come to you. Let's talk about the starting 11 today, because, of course, Ange Postecoglou made 8 changes from the AZ game. Fully expected, by the way. Mikey Moore, of course, keeping his place in the team. Maddison, Udogie as well. So the team as follows was Vicario Porro, Romero as captain, Van der Ven, Udogie, Bissouma, Maddison, Kulusevski, Johnson, Solanke and Moore. Subs today: Forster, Dragushin, Gray, Davis, Bentancur, Bergvall, Sarr, Timo Werner and Richarlison. James Maddison made his 200th Premier League appearance today. And Mikey Moore, of course, started his first ever Premier League game. The youngest player to start a Premier League game for Tottenham, 17 years, 77 days, since Stephen Carr, 17 years, 28 days against Ipswich in September 1993. And notably, no Wilson Odobert today in the squad and no Heung-min Son. Carl, were you surprised by any of the starting 11 and the subs named today? And great to see Mikey Moore getting that first start in the Premier League for Tottenham.
Yeah, I mean, I probably was surprised to see Mikey Moore start, if I'm honest, only because as well as he played on Thursday night, huge game to put him straight in, didn't really feel like an Ange kind of decision. I actually expected Werner to be back in. I think he was, with no Odobert, presumably Odobert wasn't fit enough to make the bench, and that's why he wasn't there. So I think then that made it a straight pick really between him and between Werner. Werner came on and made an impact. I think it was quite quick to see that he was in for a really physical game more. I mean, we just talking about that playing out from the back. I think it was just before half time where actually that worked for probably the first time we got more into the game, and I think that was the Porro shot over the crossbar. So I think it was a really, really difficult game for Moore to be kind of thrown in on his Premier League debut. I think he earned it, but I maybe would have seen it the other way around. I think, unfortunately, though, when we start to compare squads and start to look at things side by side, Eze, who I would have absolutely loved to have seen a sign in the summer, you look at a player of how he kind of drove Palace forward today and just how well I thought he was absolutely phenomenal for them, really, and even the little assist that he did. You look at that and you go, a player like that. Put a player like that into our team, whereas actually what we're doing is we're choosing between, the youngest player that's ever made a Premier League start for us, who's had a good cameo in Europe, or Timo Werner, whose confidence is absolutely on the floor. And I think that, and then even then you're bringing on Richarlison as well. I mean, it was good to see Richarlison back in the fold. He doesn't look sharp enough. So again, without Son, what are the options? What are the options on the bench? I think aside from the Moore decision, it was exactly the team I probably expected to see us start with. I think it was probably worth the risk. I was excited to see more, like probably most people were, but it became quite clear that it was going to be a very, very different game for him to what he experienced on Thursday night. So probably the right decision to bring him off for Werner, who, you know, maybe without the glare of a start, did look better. But I think that's what Werner does. Werner's good. Werner's better part of his play is out on the wing and getting balls into the box. It's when you put him through on goal that the problems start, or he's got, you know, half a pitch to run into after breaking an offside trap. So I do think that Werner had an impact. And with those two players up front as well, we've got Richarlison and Solanke for the final bit. That doesn't look like a partnership to me. You know, I don't think we don't play with two up front very often these days. Not many teams do. So yeah, it's the best of what we've got without Son. I think that would be the way I would say it. I did expect him to take Maddison off at half time and maybe bring Sarr on. I don't think again Maddison had a particularly poor game, but I don't think he had a particularly good game either. I think that Sarr can drive us forward, and he's got that kind of athleticism as well. So I don't think we seem to know what our best midfield is at the moment, and we seem to keep swapping and changing it so much within matches. Maybe even that's becoming a bit of a problem because teams are cutting through us.
Cole, on that point about James Maddison, you know, this is meant to be our main playmaker in the team. Should we be demanding more from him?
Yeah, I think we should. I don't think it's for lack of trying. I think he seems very, very pleased and proud to be playing for Tottenham Hotspur. He seems desperate to make it work. I think, yeah, we absolutely do probably need more of a contribution from him. I think when you kind of see the look on his face, I think it's another one of those players where he maybe is waiting for the hook a little bit, whereas actually this is he's one of the vice captains, isn't he? So this is one of our vice captains who actually is being pulled quite a number of games. What's going on behind the scenes there in terms of that relationship with Ange and whether he feels trusted by Ange, I don't know. We're not seeing a lot from Maddison to the point from goal contributions. I think he's been playing a little bit deeper this season, but that's because Kulusevski's looked so much better in that number 10 role. So what Kulu brings in that number 10 role is more than what Maddison brings. So he seems to have been dropped deeper down the pitch. Whether that's his more natural position, I don't know. I think he should be one of our talisman. He should be one of those leaders on the pitch. Is he a bit nice? You know, this is the thing that just comes up. Have we just got too many players who are a bit nice? Because we've already been talking about it. The way that Palace were just stopping the game, going down with injuries, going down with little cramps and all sorts of different things. We don't seem to do that. We don't seem to manage a game. Obviously not today because we were 1-0 down. But we seem to really, really then lose some of our cool in that situation. You saw Richarlison giving silly fouls away and things like that as well. So I think as much as anything, Maddison, he's 28 years old, 200th Premier League appearance. This is a really experienced player. This is an international player. I think we do need more from him. He needs to impose himself on games a little bit more because unfortunately what's going to happen is he's going to keep starting. He's going to keep getting hooked. Eventually, he's going to get dropped from the team, and the kind of carousel continues around with different partnerships.
Ricky, Carl mentions there about the dark arts. Should we be better at the dark arts?
You know, it's going back to Mourinho, isn't it? It's exactly what Carl's saying there. It's going back to Mourinho in that documentary when he speaks about us being too nice. Personally, I like that we don't do the dark arts, but I feel that it has to be in the locker, in a sense. It has to be in the locker as a tactic to use
Everyone's
sparingly. I prefer not doing it. I like pure football, but you know, you come up against sides like today where pure football is not going to work. Sorry, brother.
I was saying, Ricky, like most teams now, most top teams are doing it.
You don't see Man City doing it. You don't really see Liverpool doing it. You know,
but they know how to.
The ones that are doing it are Gooners. You know, Everton. Who else does it? You know, like so. I think it needs to be in the locker, but I don't think it should be the way that we play football. Personally, I like that we attack. I like that we go for it. I like that we don't like hold on. Do you know what I mean? I remember, you know, those Mourinho times and those Conte times where the back four, back five were all in our own half. You know, that's when we used to play the tiki-taka with Hugo Lloris, and that used to panic me. Do you know what I mean? That used to upset me. You know, we had someone like Højbjerg before, who was an experienced pro that was very good at slowing down the game and gaining control by using those dark arts, let's say. He would buy a foul. His laces would come undone suddenly. His boot would come off. And, you know, it's just those extra little minutes there that allowed us to stop the game, regain our shape, and then continue doing and playing the way that we want to play. We have to find a different way. And I think it's definitely something that needs to be in the locker. But for those, like you were saying earlier, Chris, I think it's got to come from those leaders that are leaders in the squad, you know, like with the armbands and stuff like that. I think it needs to come from those type of players. And you know what? You're talking about aggressors as well. You look at our side, and there ain't too many aggressive players there. We've got technical players. We do have like very good players, but you look at Vicario as a bit of an aggressor. Definitely Romero. You know, Basuma at times, but he's not really aggressive. And then you look at the rest of the side, and they're very good technical footballers. They're not aggressive in that way. So I think that's a new problem that is arisen, and that they're going to have to start thinking about.
Craig, talking about the aggression and talking about Romero, as Carl and Ricky have mentioned, do you feel like somehow the aggressive side of Romero's game we've kind of got rid of?
Yeah, he's really strange. I don't get it. Has he been told to calm down a bit? I preferred the old Romero, the bit of shithousery, to be honest with you. I'd take a couple of yellows and even a red every now and then. Don't want him being a complete liability. Of course we don't. But, you know, he was that driving. He goes back to what I was saying about somebody slinging in a tackle to get the team going. You know, we've all played football, and I've played in games where it just wasn't happening, and then a centre-back would just go through somebody, and he'd come down with snow on him, and it would get everybody going. And get in our circumstances, get the crowd going. And that's what it needed today. It just needed somebody to do something. And thinking back in the day, you know, in that Poch team, we had players with a bit of that in them. You know, Dele Alli always played on the edge, didn't he? Cole Walker's kind of that sort of footballer. He weren't scared of leaving the leg in. Toby Alderweireld, even though there's a bit more finesse about him. You know, do you know what I mean? Dembele, absolutely. Wanyama. You know, that little bit of aggression. I don't see this team having any aggression. I get what Ricky's saying. I'd love to see us passing our way through teams, but I don't think we're there yet. I think we're miles off it. So I think we need to find something else to help us in games, and I'm not seeing it. I don't see that bit of showmanship, I suppose, that bit of aggression, that bit of game playing. Palace were doing it today, a tactical foul on Kulusevski when he was running away. I can't remember who just took a card. You know, you want to see our players doing that sort of thing. You know, it's just frustrating, especially Romero. I think he's not having his strongest season so far. He's not been terrible by any stretch of the imagination, but he seems to be lacking something in his game at the moment. And I'd rather see him leading a bit more as well, because he's part of this leadership group. And I just want to see more from him. You know, he's a World Cup winner. How many cups has he won now? 3. The Copa America, he's won a couple of them, hasn't he? So I just want to see more from him, I guess, Romero. And Maddison, I thought, was bullied today. I do. Yeah. I think sometimes when it's more of a physical game, James Maddison struggles. And he didn't have his best game today. But yeah, we certainly need to do something, because we got everything wrong today. There was no. It just seemed to be tactically inept today, in my opinion. I can't see what we were trying to do, because nothing was working.
But also on Romero, there's been a narrative that has been created around him for a couple of seasons now that he can be a liability, and then when he does go in for those challenges. And we've been on this pod and we've spoken about it. Half of the fan base will say, no, he's a liability, a yellow card, a red card. The media started perpetuating that as well. Romero, there's always a red card in him, guaranteed a red card in him. You ask any kind of, you know, like contributor to like media, that anyone that speaks on football, they will say the same. They've got this, they've planted this seed there. They kept asking, how many times did they ask Postecoglou about the aggression, and are you going to temper it down? Are you going to have a word with him? Are you going to do this? Are you going to do that? So there has been a seed that's been planted and that's been perpetuated through fans like us, or you know, that do pods, but also through the media and you know, and all the sports channels left, right, and center. So there has been a narrative that has been perpetuated for a couple of seasons now, and a bit like Dele Alli, like you said, that the same things were said about Dele Alli and his aggression, and Poch was again asked 101 times, are you going to temper it? Are you going to temper it? Are you going to speak to him? Are you going to speak to him? And look what happened when the fire came out of Delhi. Do you know what I mean? So there has to be that fine balancing act. We've got to understand and give Romero credit when he does do a sliding challenge and gets a yellow card to change the game, rather than calling him a liability as well. Do you know what I mean? So there is that balancing act that we have to have with Romero. Yeah. But somebody like him, I totally agree with you, Craig, in the sense that somebody like him should have been the one that was like, you know what? Let me have it. Let me deal with it. He should have been the one that got the yellow. Do you know what I mean? Like 100% today. Just to put a marker down and to set the stall out so that we're not going to go down without a fight. We're going to battle as hard as them. But it just didn't go. It didn't go that way.
Especially when he's wearing that captain's armband as well, Ricky. Vicario has just come out and said we didn't fight as we could fight. We showed less than them. We have to improve this aspect. Ricky, let me just stay with you for a second, because let's talk about the match instance in the game. Crystal Palace 1, Spurs 0. Seconds into the game, the away fans were singing "He's one of our own," talking about Mikey Moore. Let's just go back to team selection. Mikey Moore, first start in the Premier League. Of course, he has been a shining light you know, in the academy. He's worked his way up to the first team. And Postecoglou, I'm sure, will give him a number of opportunities. Probably not the best game to start in the Premier League for him, but it's been a remarkable journey so far, and a player that I'm sure will do extremely well in the Premier League for the upcoming years. What did you make of his performance today?
I thought he done well, bro. I thought he done well. As a 17-year-old starting his first Premier League game against a really tough, aggressive, as we've spoken about, Crystal Palace side, I thought he done okay. He wasn't overawed. He wasn't intimidated. Every time that he did make a darting run, what Palace ended up doing was putting a foul on him or pushing him out of the game or making sure he was on the floor. Many times I saw him like cut inside to make something happen, and they would chop him. I thought he was also like very brave with his directness as well. He wasn't afraid to get off a cross really quickly. Instead of taking that extra touch or pushing it to the byline, he'd receive it, look up and look to put it in there, look to find a teammate. So I think it's a really good 60-odd minutes for him today. I think, in fact, I know it's in hindsight, it's a bad game for him to start because of how kind of tall, big, strong, and aggressive Palace are. But again, it's an education because that's who he's going to be coming up against. So I think he will take bundles from this. I think he will be a little bit upset that he didn't have the impact that he wanted to have. But I think this is all part of his education. In life, all of us as humans, we have to make mistakes to learn lessons in life, and today, not that he made mistakes, but today, the things that didn't go well for him, he will take from that, and that's going to turn him into the player that he's going to be. Many a small player have had it, or young player have had it over the years, and this will be fantastic for him, bro. First real aggressive, tough Premier League game, Premier League defenders. He knows what he's up against now, and to be fair, a couple of them defenders, Palace ones, they didn't like the sight of Mikey running at them. There was almost a thing where I'm not going to let this 17-year-old get past me, sort of thing. So I think that's good. I think that's good. I think it's going to benefit him in the long run, bro.
It seems to be a definite welcome to the Premier League, doesn't it, Craig, for Mikey Moore, as Ricky said there?
Yeah, it does. But he's 17. He's so young. He'll have learnt a lot today. Actually, he would have learnt a lot today. There's a very different game to the AZ game in the week. Up against inferior opposition with respect to AZ, obviously I was at the stadium on Thursday, and I was right behind those runs he made down the wing, and he just looked look like a complete superstar. But obviously today it was a smaller pitch. Don't forget at Palace, I think it's a lot smaller than a lot of the pitches, but certainly our pitch. So I just don't think that suits our game as well. Because even when Johnson and Werner were trying to keep wide, there wasn't much room at all. But we should. It's not an excuse, but we should be adapting to that. But Mikey Moore, yeah, tough introduction as for his first start there. Yeah.
I was going to say, Craig, I think that's up there with one of the best excuses on this podcast after the last couple of years. The size of
I'm trying to think of one
now.
The pitch is far too small. Yeah, no, I mean it is a small pitch at Palace, and that's why I think we do tend to be, over the years. I know we've got decent results against them, pretty much, but I don't think that's our. We do prefer a bigger pitch, but that's not an excuse. It's not an excuse at all. It's just fact.
Cole, let's come to you. After 16 minutes, James Maddison put in a cross, which was too close to the goalkeeper. 3 minutes later, Vicario with a goal kick played out from the back. It frustrated a lot of fans, as I mentioned earlier. I've also written down here, opening 20 minutes, a lot of the passing from Tottenham, it was a bit wayward. What would you put that down to? Because, as I mentioned at the start of the show, 7 wins out of our last 8 games, obviously before today, a good winning run in all competitions. You would expect Spurs to be aggressive. I know we've spoken about that as well, but the passing, a lot of passing, wayward. You've got a lot of players at the moment, competition for places in this Tottenham Hotspur squad. You would have thought that the levels would have been a lot better, as the interviewer said to Ange Postecoglou earlier as well.
Yeah, I mean, I personally think it was just the press. They were on us constantly, right at the back, pressing us really, really high up the pitch, and we just didn't seem to like it. We couldn't pass our way around it. I've seen games, and I can't think of examples, but I've seen games where that press, especially at home, where actually we're inviting teams to press, we'll kind of pass it around, put it around the corner, and all of a sudden we're off up the pitch. I think that took until just before half-time for that to happen for the first time. Now, so I think, again, it comes back to the aggression of the Palace press, the fact that they were stopping us from getting out. Our passing looked wayward. And there really, to me, then needed to be that moment then when we rolled our sleeves up and went, this is a different game. This is a different game. If we're going to beat this side, we need to do something a little bit different. I know that, people... The criticisms of Ange that do keep coming back is what's the plan B if we're not going to do if we're not being allowed to play in this way, if we're not being allowed to steamroll the teams, and every Crystal Palace were absolutely desperate for a win. They're fighting for their lives. They're having a terrible start to a season. They look at Tottenham come in and go, right, well, we can't let this team come and steamroll us, and they from minute one were on top of us. I think. For us as a club, it comes back to this thing we've been talking about, leadership, and it does extend back to the dugout as well in terms of what can we do to change the team. Who are those players? We're just talking about Romero. I just double checked, and unless I'm reading something wrong, because I couldn't remember one. Romero's not been booked this season in 10 games. So again, it is right what you're saying, Rick. It's actually he's been told to calm it down a little bit, your reliability. He's not been booked in 10 games, which is pretty impressive. At the same time, if it creates this sort of, he's wearing the captain's armband today, and he needs to be the player, as we said, he's a World Cup winner. He needs to be the player that is picking us up and driving us forward. Now, I keep thinking back to, I mean, there's a few occasions, but right in added time where he's coming forward with the ball and he sort of put his hands up and turned around and played it backwards. To me, it was like waving the white flag. There were times where in every 50-50 battle and every single time when the ball broke loose, I mean, I've not seen Van der Ven outpaced as many times since he's been with us as he has been this afternoon on one or two little 50-50 balls. I don't know what that is, if it's not desire and leadership and the team looking at themselves and going, we need to pick ourselves up from this. We won in midweek. We had a really, really good performance against West Ham in the second half. This is largely the same core of a team that got turned over at Brighton. So why is that team not looking at themselves and going, right, we need to pick this up. We need to turn this round. And unfortunately, I think the thing is, I like Ange a lot. I like Ange a lot, and it's weird that we're already at this point where that almost feels like a semi-controversial thing to say. I like Ange a lot because I like the way that we play football, and I think that he long term is the right man to take us forward. However, the one thing I don't particularly like about that press conference is it feels another slightly petulant. I'm going to be really difficult with every question you ask me. The questions weren't great. I'm going to be difficult with every question you ask me. It feels like we're two more press conferences with two more results away from the kind of Conte kind of toys out the pram. And that is a big, big worry that this football club seems to do to us as a fan base, to every manager, to every player we bring in. I don't get it.
What do you make of the criticism aimed at Ange Postecoglou, though, Cole? Because I feel like even in this podcast today, live on YouTube, a number of comments have come in today criticising Ange about the performance today and about the result today. Certainly that happened against Brighton as well. But when we're winning games, everyone seems to be with Ange. But then when we lose the odd game here and there, you get a lot of fans saying, he's not good enough. And when you said about no plan B, etc., I feel like Ange has changed things in games more recently than he did the whole of last season.
Yeah, no, I think that's very fair. Again, the West Ham game, but the reason I think I hesitate from criticising Ange as much as perhaps one or two people do is because you look at what he's got to work with in terms of how can he change the game from the bench. And it is right that as a football club, we're regressing when you look at the quality in the squad. Without going way back in time, we had a title challenging 11 and absolutely nothing on the bench. Now we've kind of sort of spread it out a little bit more. We've probably got a stronger bench at risk of then having weaker players in the starting 11. We talked about Eze. Eze is a player that we should be in a very realistic player for us as a football club to go out and get for the budget that he was available for in the summer, for the experience that he's got, and for the quality of player that he is. Instead, we are bringing on Timo Werner, who I know everyone's getting on Timo Werner's back. He isn't to the level of player that we need, and yet here we are in an away game that we're struggling, and we're bringing on an out of form Timo Werner, and actually he probably makes a fist at being one of our better players for the last half hour. That is a real problem, I think, and to my mind, I can't see how we can blame Ange for that. That's not Ange's fault. He can only work with the squad that he's got. So that's the reason why I would say that, because when it's good with Ange, it is absolutely phenomenal. And it wasn't. You're right. It wasn't. I don't think we were out battled and out fought in every area of the pitch today, and then we didn't have the quality to break down what was happening to us. And more importantly, at some points, I think too many players on the pitch didn't have the desire. And I don't understand that. And that is where Ange does have to take some criticism, because how can that performance happen at Brighton and 2 weeks later we'd be back here talking about desire? That is where Ange does have to take some accountability, 100%.
I tell you what, though, every single time I looked at Eze today, I did look down and think, I wish he was wearing a Spurs shirt. It'd be great. Ricky, let's come to you. In the 28th minute, Crystal Palace had a chance, shot from the left-hand side from Hughes, headed over. In the 30th minute, Sarr's attempt, saved by Vicario, assisted by Hughes. And then a minute later, Crystal Palace scored the only goal of the game. Mateta finishing left-footed, assisted by Eze after a cross was put into the box. Talk us through the goal, because it was a disappointing goal to concede, but I felt like it was coming.
Yes. You know what? Okay, I'll talk you through the goal, but I just need to get something out about plan B. Because plan B for me, for Postecoglou, I think, as he stated, it comes down to personnel. So when he brings people off the bench, or when he changes players within that starting 11, that is his plan B. So he might bring on someone like against West Ham. He might take off a creative and bring on an energy box-to-box midfielder to change that midfield and to get us a hold of. So that was a plan B that worked against West Ham. Today, the plan B was to go 2 up front, Solanke, Emma Charles, and to take our creative players off, both Kulusevski and Maddison, which I felt was very risky. I felt if you're gonna take off one, you gotta take off 2. It was my feeling at the time, right? So he tried a plan B today, but plan B didn't work either. So when we say there ain't a plan B, I think that we should be a little bit more. We should give a little bit more credit to what he believes is a plan B, and when we see a plan B and it still doesn't work. Do you know what I mean? So just for balance and just for clarity for all of us, because sometimes what you're talking about, Chris, is that when we win, we believe we're going to win the lot, and when we lose, we think that we are done, dusted, and we're in the doldrums. And this is how I started this podcast. This is why I came from a different point of view. I don't think we was totally overawed or I don't think they were totally Real Madrid-esque against us. I don't think we was out quality. It's not that. So I think that as fans, instead of being on the extremes, we got to enjoy the wins, and we got when it comes down to the losses, we got to criticize them where criticism is due, and give credit where credit is due, and look at it as a whole. Chris, you're absolutely right in the sense of a Premier League game. It's the poorest game that we've played because we didn't get into our flow whatsoever. But again, I'm coming back to what I said at the beginning. That has to do a lot with Crystal Palace, their manager, their aggression, their game tactics that out-tacticked us. So yes, Postecoglou did try a plan B today on 60 minutes. It didn't come off. There were things that did come off, like Craig was saying about Timo. All right, cool. Got his pacing, got a couple of crosses in, but fundamentally, we still lost 1-0. So when it comes down to the goal conceded, for me, it was a bit of a tick-attacker with Vicario there. But when Romero gets the ball, this is where I'm saying he should have played that ball out. I don't think, and if you're going to pass it to Mickey, which is either which way, whether it's on the ground or on the floor, it's going to be a risky pass. Because there were 2 Crystal Palace players, from what I remember, that were in and around the box. So passing it to Mickey was a risky pass anyway. But the pass that he gave him wasn't the greatest of passes. Mickey saw the danger and tried to volley it, but then it scuffs off of his foot. He doesn't catch it, and then the ball gets played back in. Eze has a great flick, which I don't know whether he meant or not. I don't know if he meant it or not. But it was a great flick into Mateta where it dumbfounded the defense and Vicario, and they scored. I don't think it was a particularly pretty goal, but they scored. They've got the goal and they've gone 1 up. So it wasn't the greatest of goals, but people are talking about Mickey, and for me, it was more of a Romero pass. I think there should have been a better pass, or he should have played it forward. Rather than playing it across the box, he should have played it forward. So yeah, we again, and that's the biggest frustration when it comes down to certain goals that we concede. It's always on our shoulders. Sometimes it ain't even about the opposition. We do it to ourselves sometimes. And we've seen it time and time. That's the frustrating thing for me today, is that we've done it to ourselves. Yes, they were aggressive. Yes, they had chances. Yes, they were fighting. But they didn't look dangerous to me today. I didn't see any danger from them. And guys, I know like we spoke about Eze in the summer, and we're speaking about him today, but I felt he was very quiet today. I felt that he was unimpressive for me today.
Ricky,
I felt that in the second half,
if that's a quiet Eze, give him to me anytime.
Yeah, cool. But bruv, I've got a feeling. No, I'm with you, right? But I think that sometimes we have to look at it in balance. Sometimes we look at the grass is greener on that side. And sometimes once you get to that side, you're like, oh, the grass is kind of brown over here too. I think that if Eze was to come into the side and was playing today, part of me feels that we would have been frustrated by Eze. I just, because he gave the ball. You look at that first half, you look at the first, 55 minutes, there wasn't much coming from him. And then he sparked into life for about 20 minutes in the second half, where he looked really good. You know, when he started running and when he started, you know, when he was on his heels, I felt he looked really good for that period of time. But on the whole, I don't think he was that great. I still believe that Koulou's been playing better in that position for the 9 games in the league. I feel that Koulou has had, if you look at his stats and you compare Eze to his 9 games to Koulou's 9 games, I've got a feeling in the bottom of my heart that Koulou's outshining him on the stats and on all the attributes, bro. Did he have a great 20 minutes? Yes. I'm not saying he's rubbish. I'm not. I'm just saying that sometimes we have extreme feelings, and that's what football does to you. It does it to you. It gives you extreme highs, and then it punches you in the gut and kicks you up the backside many a time. And I'm just trying to get us to have a little bit more balance. Do you know what I mean?
Craig, let's come to you. I also wrote down in my notes that I felt like your doggy helped us out a number of times, blocking certain shots and putting in tackles. And I felt like he was a real leader on the pitch today. Vicario, however, I felt like he put us in trouble on a number of occasions. And yes, we'll talk about the Manchester City game shortly. And of course, then we face Aston Villa in the Premier League at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium next weekend. We cannot be playing out from the back like we did today in these games against top opposition. No disrespect to Crystal Palace, but no wins before today in the Premier League. And when you're going to face a team like City, who haven't lost a game so far this season, Villa haven't lost a game in all competitions in the last couple of months, you're going to be talking about top opposition. We cannot be passing balls out from the back like that from goal kicks, can we?
No, and this is why the next 2 games are it's going to be very interesting to see how we deal with it, to be honest with you. Whether it's an understrength City side in the week or not, it's still Manchester City. And I think playing out from the back sometimes, I mean, like I say, it gives me heart attacks, but I think if Vicario's got nobody to pass to, that's not necessarily his fault if he's given the ball. You know, if Vicario, don't get me wrong, sometimes Vicario is dilly-dallies on the ball and quite frankly worries me. He's not Edison. I think Edison probably does that better than any goalkeeper I've seen, with the exception of Neuer, perhaps. But Vicario, if he's not got a ball on, that's not his problem. That's the team. And Forest Palace were pressing us very, very high today, and we're cutting out those passes. But like you say, if that happens against City, if it happens against Villa, we're going to be in trouble. That just wasn't good enough today. That we're going to get punished if we play out from the back that badly. Vicario is a good goalkeeper. I think he's one of the best shot stoppers in the league. But on occasion, playing out from the back, it really does worry me and frighten me, actually. I'd rather him just kick it long. But then again, if we did that all the time, we'd be moaning about that. So you've got to find that happy balance. Do you know what I mean?
Craig, let's stay with you. What do you make of Tottenham's chances in that first half? Because it did take us a little bit of time to get going, and we didn't really test the goalkeeper at all. In the 34th minute, we had an attempt from Christian Romero. A minute later, an attempt from Mickey van der Ven that was blocked. A minute later, Brennan Johnson hit the post from 6 yards out. Solanke had a chance in the 39th minute. James Maddison had a chance as well just before the half-time break. Pedro Porro hit one over the bar. Half-time, of course, it was 1-0. What do you make of those chances that Spurs had in that first half?
Yeah, we're just not clinical today. And it is funny. You want to see more shots on target. And, in previous games like the Manchester United game, for example, everything seemed to be going our way. And Brendan Johnson, I think he should come off social media because ever since he's come back on it, he hasn't scored, has he? It's just that lack of being clinical again, isn't it? We didn't have as many chances today as we've had in past games, but again, it's just taking your chances, because it proved today this possession thing which we all love. You want to be having 60-70% possession. You don't always win your games. Like today, we had a bulk of the possession, the lion's share of possession, didn't do anything with it, and Palace done the job on this. So But the same goes for this XG thing, and I don't know what our XG was today. I can't remember what the figures were, but we just weren't clinical enough, and that's the bottom line.
There's a comment here saying, "Always love Ricky's point of view." Of course, so do we. That's why he's on this podcast every single episode. Carl, let's come to you. Let's try and talk about some positives from today's game. Whose performances from this Tottenham Hotspur team, or even the subs that came on, who impressed you today?
Sorry, Chris, you're breaking up. No. I'm joking. No, sorry, Chris. That's a tough one. Who impressed me today? Mikey Moore. Let's start with Mikey Moore. I think, he didn't get too many touches. What he did do, I think he was quite positive after he'd kind of been kicked in the air a couple of times. I think most of those chances you just mentioned, Chris, seemed to come down that left-hand side. So I think Udogie looking after him and kind of the interplay between those two looked good. So I think that was good. I thought Porro had a decent game. I thought Werner made an impact when he came on. I think Solanke as well. I mean, he was looking. It was frustrating because we just couldn't seem to get the ball to him. And going back to what Rick was saying about the plan B, you are actually bang on there, Rick. To that being a plan B, they were bringing Richarlison on. I think if you're going to play with two up front, you need to get the ball out wide and be getting balls into the box. And we were struggling to get it out wide and actually get it into the box as well. So to me, that I've got to be honest, when I saw that happening, I didn't really feel like that was a plan B that looked too promising either. Kulu had a quieter game, but I mean, I think he sort of he took that knock to the head, and he actually seemed to be playing. I mean, he actually looked slightly worryingly dazed for after that. So while taking, I think, Kulusevski and Maddison off is a little bit of a bizarre one. I think that was one of the reasons. I think that Kulusevski would have stayed on the pitch, even though he wasn't necessarily having the best game, had he not taken that knock. Vic pulled out some great saves. He did look a little bit liable, playing the ball out from the backs. That tempers that slightly, but he did keep us in it with a couple of good saves. I'm just trying to think if there's anyone else I've left out. I mean, the back two, it wasn't a great game for them, and that's our best centre back pairing by a distance. But it wasn't the best game for either of them. So there's not a lot to be said there as well. And I like the energy that Sarr brings when he comes onto the pitch as well. So I thought it started to turn the tide a little bit, and we got forward a little bit more. Whether that's because Palace just started to retreat back a little bit as well, but I felt like he imposed himself on the game a bit more. If I'm really, really honest, I don't think there was a performance in the team above a 6 out of 10. If I'm really honest, though, so it's difficult to pick out too many stars. I'm scraping for some of them.
Well, I think you scraped extremely well there. Lee summed it up here. Saying positives, are you having a laugh? So, yeah.
I did my best. I did my absolute best. That was improv.
You certainly did. Ricky, let's come to you. How are you feeling at the halfway point? Because I must admit, even inside the stadium, I thought Spurs are going to turn this around. Andrew's going to give them an absolute rollicking at half time. He might change a few things here and there. Certainly in that second half, which he did. He brought on a number of subs, which we'll get to in a second. But how are you feeling at half time? Because over this last couple of months, when Spurs do go 1-0 down, like the West Ham game, I've felt confident as a fan, thinking, it's okay, we're going to turn this around. Did you think the same?
Yeah, I was hoping, bro. I was really, really hoping. But the way that we finished that first half, it was tough, because you could see as well, like their high press and their aggression and all of their tactics, Palace, they were working. So I did have that same feeling that once Ange would get them into the room, give them a bit of a rollicking. Also, those players that were feeling the frustration, them feeling, that they had to do something else, that they had to do something new, and come out with, energy, a bit of aggression. And with drive. But Palace started that second half the same way that they finished it. And it was really, really tough for us to get a hold of the game and to string any type of passes or to get any momentum. And that's why I give it to Palace. We tried. It's a new problem. Not a brand new problem for us, but it's a new problem with under Postecoglou that, you know, coming up against this type of aggression has stifled us. Every other problem, though, Postecoglou and the team have worked on, and I see them working on this one as well. You know, I've got faith in this project. I've got faith in this manager. I've got faith in these players. We've got a very young side, and even our experienced players there are like, you know, this is their second season. Well, yeah, like Craig said, it's like almost like a year anniversary under Postecoglou there. So, you know, I still think that we are in our, I wouldn't say infancy, but we're at the toddler stage of Ange Postecoglou, and there's times that we're going to fall down. There's times where it's not going to work. But what I would ask you, Chris, to kind of throw a question back to you, is that you've spoken to the author of Ange's book. You've read it yourself. Ange has come up against very similar problems and criticism before. So from what you've read and from speaking to, I think his name was Vince. Was it Vince, Chris?
Yeah.
I think it was. So big up to Vince. But with that, what would be your opinion? What would be your opinion of Ange facing this type of criticism, facing these types of periods within a season? And what did that book say? What did Vince say? Or what was the thing that was the turnaround for you? What would be your opinion, Chris?
Every single Ange Postecoglou expert that have covered Ange Postecoglou's career from the very beginning.
Have you frozen or has it gone quiet? Did he hear me? Have I gone quiet?
Yeah. They have all said that he has heard all of this before. He's heard all of this negativity before. This has happened everywhere he's gone, and Ange Postecoglou has proved every single person wrong, and he has then been successful everywhere he has gone. But of course, you know, to caveat that, we have seen this before with Jose Mourinho. We have seen this before with Antonio Conte. They've won trophies everywhere they have gone. This is the Premier League. It is very, very different. But as I said before, Ricky, I do believe that Ange does need the tools. He does need the time. Where Cole mentioned there about, you know, we're bringing on Timo Werner instead of a player like Eze, I do believe that we need to do a lot more work in these transfer windows. The transfer windows, and I feel like this answer could go on for hours, actually. So I'll keep it short. But I feel like the transfer windows, they have been better than previous transfer windows. And I do believe that we are getting there. But it's a word that none of us like to hear all the time. Patience. I just feel like we do need to give a bit of patience with this manager because, you know, we can't keep cheering every time we win and then keep being extremely disappointed and, you know, slagging off the manager when we don't win games. I do feel like it's going to be a process and it will take time. You know, and I do hope that we will be successful. But, you know, when we win the Europa League games and when we win certain Premier League games, I feel like some people do get too carried away. And then it's a huge disappointment when we don't win other certain games. So I do feel like it is a process, certainly. But in answer to your question, what Vince said and what other experts have said is that Ange has seen this time and time again, and he has always proved people wrong. And I'm certainly one of those people, as I'm sure all of us are. We all want to see Ange Postecoglou prove everyone wrong in the Premier League and win a trophy, either the Premier League, the Europa League, the Champions League, the League Cup, the FA Cup, whatever it is, because we have been without a trophy for so long, which we'll come on to talk about the Manchester City game on Wednesday shortly. Just going back to today's game, Craig, and we'll try and wrap this game up pretty quick, this second half. Eze had a chance for Crystal Palace in the 47th minute, and as Ricky said there, Crystal Palace did come out fighting again in that second half, started the half extremely well. He missed the chance 2 minutes in. Johnson crossed to Kulusevski, goalkeeper saved. A minute later, Eze thought that he'd made it 2-0, but the offside flag went up, VAR. Craig, how close was that?
I've seen closer, to be honest. It was quite obvious as soon as they put it up that he was offside. I wouldn't say there was there was much to. He actually looked offside in when you saw it in real time. To be honest with you, I was quite confident that it'd be chalked off, and Udogie was a little bit back than the other defenders, but in my mind, as soon as you see the freeze frame from when the ball was kicked, there was no doubt he was offside. So yeah.
Craig, Crystal Palace also had a penalty shout on 52 minutes. Could you talk us through that one?
Yeah, Van der Ven did grab a bit. He didn't really grab his shirt as such. It was more like an arm across the chest, and it was just clever defending. He didn't have hold of him that long. He just let go in time. It wasn't a penalty. You'd be absolutely gutted if that penalty was given against you for that. Obviously, the Palace fans thought it was, but as they did go down quite easily for that one. But no, not for me. That wasn't a penalty, and that's me having my unbiased hat on.
James Maddison had a shot on 55 minutes, comfortable save for the goalkeeper. A couple of minutes later, Sarr had a chance for Crystal Palace. Vicario saved. Palace then had another chance which went wide. On 58 minutes, Eze had a chance that he missed. Craig, I know I've got to ask you about Eze because during the summer transfer window, I think me and you spoke about Eze every single day. You really wanted Spurs to sign Eze. What did you make of his performance today? And would you like to see him in a Spurs shirt in the January window? Unlikely, but next summer window, perhaps?
Yeah, look, he wasn't. He's what we know brilliant best today. I don't think he has been all season. I think personally that Eze probably wanted the move. I think he's missing his mate Elise as well. Them two always combine really well. So, but like I say, he's not been having the best season. I think he only had one assist up until today. So, but look, he's a danger. He showed today clever footwork. Went past a few of our players like they weren't there, to be honest with you. And yeah, 100%. I want to see him come in. I'd love to see him come in January. That would be a really tough deal to get done, but I still think he's there, and I still think we need to push for him next year. But going on, while we're on the subject of this transfer window, I was trying to think, and yes, teams do this and win championships or cups or whatever, but more so premierships by bringing players through, doing it on a budget, because Leicester did it. But that is so rare, so few and far between. When you look at the teams that have won the Premier League, they've done it by making either a lot of big money signings, proven talent, or getting to a point where you're actually succeed and then do what that mob down the road have done, bringing Declan Rice. All right, they haven't won anything yet, but for me, we've got to sprinkle some stardust in this team. We've got to bring in some big name, quality, proven players, whether that be January, whether that be next summer, because I don't think we can challenge for anything. Certainly the Premier League, if we don't do that. I think I love the fact we get bringing players through. I love seeing the Mikey Moores coming through. I love the fact we're buying the Archie Grays and the Bergvales. I think Archie Gray's a little bit further down the line than Bergvale, but I think he will come good. But I just think we need those big players, perhaps 3 more players, top quality, like your Eze, like a monster number 6, and I think perhaps another defender, definitely a left back, because I want to see Spence filling in for Porro, because I think Spence is has really got something special as well. But look, we got Vuskovic coming in. He's only 17, 18 years old. I thought he was coming January, but apparently he's coming in the summer. You might know if I'm right or wrong about that, Chris. I don't know. Obviously, we got Yang coming in, but that's a young player again. So for me, if we spent 150 million, 200 million, which apparently we have got. I know you laugh, but we have got it, and we're not. We all know we're not going to spend it.
I thought it was going to be Carl coming out of all the jokes today.
I'm just telling you what needs to happen, right? I'm telling you what needs to happen. Whether if Amanda Staveley comes in and we do it, God knows. But something like that needs to happen, in my opinion, for us to push on, because I think it's very, very difficult. It's going to be hugely difficult to do it with this squad and just bringing through young, talented players and hoping that they that they turn into superstars. I think we need to bring in a few superstars, and that will be a good mix.
Yeah, absolutely. Cole, let's come to you. In the 58th minute, Eze had another chance that he missed. 4 minutes later, Ange made 3 changes. Maddison, Kulusevski and Moore all coming off. Richarlison, Sarr and Timo Werner coming on. On 67 minutes, Eze had another chance. Vicario saved. On 82 minutes, Adam Walton had a chance. Vicario saved again, which was an absolutely fantastic save, I might add. 5 minutes later, Bentancur came on. Basuma came off. I suppose the question I want to ask you today, Cole, is what did you make of Ange Postecoglou's subs in that second half? Is that what you would have thought that he would have done in that second period?
I expected to see Sarr for Maddison at half time, so I was surprised that whether we just gave them 15 minutes to go and sort it out, and we didn't. I mean, to be honest with you, we could have gone further behind in the opening 15 minutes of the second half. So again, bringing on those players, we've already touched upon the fact that Kalu maybe had taken that knock to the head. Maddison coming off. Mikey Moore, no criticism of him, but it just was such a difficult game for him to be able to get into, even though I think he was probably at the heart of one or two of our brightest sparks in the first half. Comes back to, again, Richarlison, £60 million player. You want to see him come on and make an impact in a game. He's been really unfortunate with injuries since he's joined us. At the same time, there hasn't been an awful lot that has kind of suggested that he is going to become one of these players that is going to be one of our talisman. Because again, we are talking about an international player, very experienced player. When you bring a Richarlison off the bench, you want him to have an impact. I think him and Solanke up front as a partnership, that to me, in what was a really congested game at the best of times, to me, they're just going to be in too much of the same space. And you saw a couple of times there was an attempted nod on, but yeah, for me, that didn't feel like that was going to be the option to break them down. But I think that what is really strange about today's game, and I was doing it mindful that I was going to be coming on here talking about it, mindful that just we needed to get back in this game and find that bit of magic. I couldn't see the options. I couldn't pick out the player who I felt was going to take the game by the scruff of the neck and take us forward. And when we're talking about that in terms of sort of the the players that we need to bring in. I mean, when you think about some of those ready-made superstars, maybe sometimes a little bit. I'm thinking Edgar Davids, I'm thinking Rafa van der Vaart, I'm thinking David Ginola, Jurgen Klinsmann. These kind of players over 30 years that actually we've brought in a absolute proven world-class player, slotted them in, and they have enhanced everybody around them. And all 4 of those players that I've just mentioned, I'm probably missing out a few obvious ones as well. All 4 of those players lifted the team around them. This, I think, is what this football club needs. I'm a big, big fan of now actually signing some proven Premier League talent to actually drive us forward. And we have done that. And James Maddison has been an impactful player for us overall, 100%. But I do think that we and really we've talked a lot about Eze, and I agree. I think he probably would have sort of been the player that I think he wanted the move in the summer. Would Eze be that? He's not been on great form this season. I thought he was good today. I know the boys don't necessarily agree with that. I thought he was a good player for them today and was doing a lot. I think he outplayed a lot of our team, even if he was perhaps a little bit average. So who is that player that is in the starting lineup, and who could we bring off the bench that's going to change a game? Unfortunately, I don't think it's Richarlison. But today, that was all Ange had to go with, and here we are chatting about a defeat, and really those subs not making a huge impact. Werner probably the pick of them.
Well, as I mentioned earlier, Spurs are 8th in the Premier League table, 13 points from 9 games. We're now 5 points away from the top 4 and 10 points away from league leaders Manchester City. And of course, it is Manchester City who we face next in the Carabao Cup. Now, Pep Guardiola has come out and said, when they beat Watford in the last round, he come out and said, we will not be wasting energy on this competition.
I would say the next round is going to play the players. I announce you now, they play the last minutes of the second team. We are not going to waste energy for this competition for sure. So I don't know what's going to happen. If I have a lot of injuries, going to play the second team. and you have players that you have all a squad ready. It's a good competition to take the rhythm. That's for sure.
Ricky, let's come to you on the Manchester City game in the Carabao Cup, because I feel like if Spurs went strong, we would have a real chance knocking out the Premier League champions, and we could go far and perhaps lift this trophy in 2025. Now, but of course, we know that a second string Manchester City team is still an extremely strong team. Now, they have played 13 competitive games this season, 10 wins, 3 draws. They have 23 points from 9 Premier League games, sitting top of the Premier League right now. They beat Southampton 1-0 on Saturday. They've been unbeaten all season in all competitions, as we mentioned. 7 points in 3 games in the Champions League, third in the Champions League table. We know what quality Manchester City have. How are you feeling ahead of this game? Because when you look at the last 10 games, the last 10 meetings with Manchester City, 4 Spurs wins, 1 draw, 5 City wins, and notably, City won both the cup games, including the League Cup final back in April 2021. How are you feeling ahead of this game?
Excited, bro. I'm excited, and I think that boys should be excited too. When it comes down to Man City, we always have a tough game against them, but we always have a good game against them. They're a tough side. They're starting 11 and their second team. There's not a lot to choose between them. Sometimes it's just age, and experience, but they're all technical players. You've seen someone like Cole Palmer, who wasn't getting any time there, really, leaves and goes and becomes a phenomenon at Chelsea. So even their youth, they've got some of the best young ones in the academies, throughout the leagues, not just in the Premier League. So they're always going to be a tough side. And we know what Pep brings when he comes to play football. They're relentless. They are aggressive. But we always have a good game against them. And I remember having a left back and a right back as our centre halves, and we went and got a result. So I think we're going to be up to the battle. I think they will play their second string, but I don't think that means anything. I think we have to play our first team, our strongest lineup, because we have to show our intentions towards this cup competition, regardless of the opposition. Let the opposition worry about us. Let's not worry about them. We know what they're going to bring. So it's not changing the side to suit what Man City are doing. It's playing the side that we need to play to go and get the result, to get through and to keep moving this forward. Any competition with Man City in it is one of the toughest competitions you can be in, because of how relentlessly they've won competitions throughout, whether it be the Carabao or the FA or the league or they go out to relentlessly win, and that's going to be the toughest things to come up against. But that's how we need to be. We need to go out to relentlessly win this game and push ourselves forward, and to go through to the next round and to give ourselves the best chance of winning this particular competition. It's only a couple of games away from the final. So I feel that even though we've played today and it's, only a couple of days before the cup game turns up, I think you got to play them. Get some rhythm in their legs, and, and get some momentum going. And it's going to be an open game because they like to play football too. It's going to be a bit of a basketball match. I think it's going to be end to end from start to finish. But I'm excited for it. And I can't wait for these boys to, again, show up and be upset and be frustrated with this game, but go and prove it right. Under and we're not going to win every game, but it's about how we react. It's about what we do to prevent those stupid things from happening. So I'm excited, bro. We're going to go full team, I feel, and we're going for the win.
Ricky, what's your score prediction?
I'm going to go 2-1 Tottenham.
Okay, Craig, we're doing a preview show, so we'll get your full views on Monday evening. What's your score prediction for this game?
At the moment, and this might change, I think it's going to be 2-2. I think it's going to go to penalties. And I'll keep you. I'll let you know perhaps Monday which way I think those penalties are going to go. But yeah,
More drama. Craig's predicting more drama. Carl, what are you going with? And how strong do you think Postecoglou will go? Because bearing in mind all of these cup competitions under Postecoglou, so many changes.
Yeah, I'll be making the fairly long trip down from the Midlands on Wednesday night with my son. If we are sat in traffic and that team comes out and Fraser Forster's in goal, no offence to Fraser Forster, but I'll be very, very disappointed. That is when I will know. Because I have sat through too many performances in the latter stages of cups when we stick our reserve goalkeeper in. For me, Ange, I think, would be under real pressure, genuine pressure, if we go out of that cup on Wednesday night. And I think he should be putting out the team. Largely, he's put out today. I think he should be putting the team out to actually go and repair after a performance like this. And do you know what? Call me psychotic, but I think that's exactly what we'll do. I think what Ange is trying to build at Spurs is similar to the kind of Guardiola thing, where actually it doesn't matter who you bring in, they all play the same style. And Man City have been doing this for a decade now and just keep producing these fantastic footballers that come through, the likes of Rico Lewis, Cole Palmer, Hussein as well, these players. So I think whatever we come up against, we'll probably come up against a very young and skillful Manchester City team. However, I do not want to be seeing wide changes, because I think if we go out of the cup on Wednesday night, look, there's lots more to play for this season. Still very, very early, but we all know how disappointing it was last season against Fulham. That was the only kind of blip that Ange had in that kind of first half of the season, was picking a weakened team. This is Man City. They are going to be a good side, whoever they put out. We need to put our full strength team out. We need to blow them away. This cup is wide open for us, and let's get this monkey off our backs with this not won a trophy in however long. So I want to see a full strength team. I cannot tell you how disappointed I will be if, when I turn to my son in the passenger seat on Wednesday night and say, what's the team? And he starts with Forster, I may well turn the car around, but we'll see.
Carl, I'm with you. I want a full strength 11. I just want to go through to the next round, and hopefully we can go all the way in this competition. I feel like it's a real good opportunity, as I'm sure a lot of you guys feel the same as well. Carl, thank you so much for joining us. And Craig and Ricky and I will look forward to seeing you at the Football Content Awards in November at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. Where can people find you, and tell everyone about your wonderful podcast again?
Yeah, so at Carl D. Jones or at WFBA Pod. When football began again, it's a Premier League nostalgia pod. Basically, I've had Brian Dean, Clive Tildesley, various comedians. We break down seasons by season. I've worked my way all the way through the 90s. Not a lot to cheer about with Spurs there. 1 or 2 relegation battles. If you listen very closely as a Spurs fan, you will hear every cheeky dig I get in at Arsenal at all possibilities, despite being neutral. And just one other quick thing. I wrote a book called Being That Number, all about Spurs supporters clubs all around the world. A great little stocking filler. It's still available for a tenner on Amazon. Basically relive the Champions League final season. It was supposed to be about our first season back at Spurs. Obviously, it ended mostly being at Wembley and ended in Madrid. But it still gets nice reviews. So if you're looking for dropping hints to people in your family for what you want for Christmas, Being That Number, a tenner on Amazon.
Carl does it all. Comedian, author, podcaster. Carl, best of luck with it all. Thank you so much for coming on, and hopefully it won't be that long before you return on this show again. Thank you so much for being a great guest this evening. Ricky, thank you so much as always. Look forward to seeing you again very soon. Where can people find you?
People know where they can find me by now. My goodness. But yes, if you want to find me on...
In Watford.
You know what I mean? You'll never find me in Watford, ever. Never. I can't do it. Even if I've got a job there, I'd be like, no, you got to move. But yes, on X, you can find me at Ricky J Norwood. On Instagram, you can find me at official Ricky Norwood. That's without the J on Instagram. But I'm more than likely going to be with you real soon after a game, bro. So, look, let's just keep this train rolling. Yes, it was a bad defeat today, but it's how we pick ourselves up and it's how we keep moving forward. And that's what I want to see from the boys. Always an honor and a pleasure to be on with you beautiful gentlemen. And hopefully everyone watching and listening, it just feels a little bit better, not as angry eating their Sunday dinner tonight. Hopefully there's been a little bit of jokes and a bit of therapy, and you're just feeling a little bit better. There ain't no match of the day on tonight, so you don't have to worry about that. Nobody has to worry about that. And also Sky Sports News and Talk Sport, they're not working for the next week or so. So don't worry about switching onto those. It's absolutely fine. Go about your business up until Wednesday, and we go again. Come on, you Spurs.
Ricky, thank you so much. You'll be with us next after the Aston Villa game back in the Premier League. So hopefully we can get back to winning ways in the Premier League as well. Craig, you'll be back with us on Monday night, and of course on Wednesday night after we face Manchester City. So hopefully me and you are both smiling on Wednesday evening. Where can people find you?
Yeah, and on against Villa, I think as well. So three times in a week. So I'll try. Hopefully I've got a smile on my face for all those shows. I know it doesn't happen that often, but come on, this is years of being a Spurs fan, so it's kind of ingrained. But I will try and spell at Dearman9 on X if you want to give me a follow. That's great. I think it's at Craig Dearman9 on Instagram. I don't know. I really don't know. You can find me. You know where to find me. As Ricky said, look me up. Look me up through Ricky and Chris, and that you'll find me if you really want to. But yeah, always a pleasure. Sometimes not as much of a pleasure like today, but it's good for therapy, like we say. So, but what I will say is, I'm going to leave it till tomorrow's show. Tune into tomorrow's show. We're going to go a bit more in depth in it. So yeah.
Yes.
Thanks, Chris.
Yes.
Yes.
We'll see you Monday. Craig and I can't get enough of talking about Tottenham on a daily basis.
Yeah.
Craig, your favourite word or your most used word, I think, during these podcasts this season has been frustrating. So I don't want to hear that for the rest of the week or even for the rest of the season. So hopefully things are on the up again and we get back to winning ways. But Craig, Ricky, Cole, you've been 3 great guests this evening. Thank you so much. Pity that we couldn't talk about a win this evening, but hopefully we will get through to the next round of the Carabao Cup on Wednesday. Hopefully we can beat Villa next weekend as well, getting back to winning ways in the Premier League. Thank you for watching, everyone. Thank you for listening. And until the next time, come on, you Spurs.